Guys, Wolf Hoffman from Accept here, and you're watching Ramzine. Metal! Fantastic! I just arrived about an hour ago. It's bloody hot out there,
Yes.
so we'll see what's going to be like on stage. But I'm sure.
I feel very lucky to have come into an air-conned room right
Yeah,
now.
me too, right now. But
So,
like I said, we've got to go out there in a few minutes. And
that is true. And yesterday, someone nearly did faint on stage.
I heard that. Yeah,
So,
it was even hotter
yeah.
yesterday.
Yeah, I think it has cooled down a bit, so it should be okay.
But metal and sweat and heat, it all
It's
works.
all part of it.
Works for me.
Yeah. So have you guys played Slovenia before?
We have actually. We played this very festival 2 years ago. I think.
Metal Camp.
Maybe 3 years ago. I forget. But yeah.
What do you think of MetalDays as a festival compared to?
It's one of the more one of the smaller ones. You know, there's festivals that are way bigger, but this is a very beautiful part of the world, and there's some very dedicated fans out there, so it should be all good.
Yeah.
I know they're very wild and enthusiastic here, so
Yeah. Accept has been in the music industry for many years.
Many moons, yes, ma'am, absolutely.
So I was wondering, what are the biggest changes you have seen in the music industry from when you first started out to now?
Well, where do you want to start? I mean, the whole recording industry, for one thing,
Yeah.
is completely different. But the thing that has not changed is going out there and do your thing on stage. That's pretty much like it was back in the day. That really hasn't changed. You go out and play your songs and the audience gets into it. That whole thing is still exactly the same. The whole touring part of the business is pretty much exactly the same. But of course, making a record, selling a record, and all that kind of distributing, that has all changed dramatically. You know, everybody knows
the
that.
Internet, yeah.
The internet, yeah, heck yeah.
And being, I would say, a veteran musician, have you noticed kind of a younger crowd come to shows now?
Yeah, well, that's the beauty of days like today. There's actually a multi-generation audience out there. You know, there's people with their parents, in some cases even grandparents, from what I've heard. Seems hard to believe, but there's actually 2-3 generations of fans out there. People who've seen us 30 years ago and people who are just discovering Accept. So it's awesome.
I think a lot of people in the music industry keep talking about at the moment that people aren't buying music, aren't buying CDs, but then within metal
is still a little different in that respect because people really want to, a lot of them are collectors. They want to have the physical album and they want to get it signed by the band, and you can't sign an MP3, so we're very lucky in that regard that a lot of people still buy the actual product.
Yeah, and vinyl is...
That's making a huge comeback. As a matter of fact, we are releasing our albums or our records in, all kinds of different colors of vinyls and the good heavy-duty quality vinyl that the collectors like, and, so and I have to say, there's something to be said. I mean, I'm not a collector or record fanatic by any means, but I love looking at the big artwork. I love handling these big old vinyl records.
I think it's great to have the picture sets and the actual physical CD.
Absolutely.
I personally have never gone into the whole Spotify thing, but maybe one day if you'll get to that stage where bands are going to be just downloadable.
Well, I hope. I mean, it seems like the signs of the time that it's going that direction. Nobody can deny that, but I hope it's never going to go completely to that point where people just give away everything, because that would be the death of a lot of bands and artists, because you can't live just... It's very expensive to make a record. It takes a long time, and you can't just expect people to give it away because it's not working. The business model is just not there.
What do you think about the whole crowdfunding way to make a record these days? Is that something that you would ever consider?
Well, it might work for some band. We have never even thought about that because we've got, a great record deal, great record company, and we're very happy with who we are and where we are and who we work with.
Yeah.
But it's certainly a great idea for some artists, I'm sure, some bands. If it works, awesome.
Yeah.
But I don't know too much about it. The basic principle I understand, but I'm sure there's all kinds of thoughts connected with it, ins and outs, that little details that can be quite tricky. I don't know. We live in our own little bubble, and I have no idea about the metal scene in general. Okay. You're probably in a better position than I am to judge all this kind of stuff, but so people ask me all the time, where's metal going to be in 10 years, and how do you judge the whole metal? I have no idea. We do what we do, and we do our best, and as long as there's fans out there who like it, and you know, we will travel the world and do what we do. As long as we're all healthy and there's people who want to see us, then we'll be glad to do it. But about the scene in general, it's very hard for me to say, you know.
And as a band, you know, you've toured with so many great bands already. Is there anyone left on your bucket list that you would want to tour with?
Well, one band on our bucket list was the Scorpions. Last year, for the first time in 30 years, or in all these years that we've been doing this, we played with the Scorpions together for the first time. That was awesome.
Yeah.
You know, but there's many bands out there. I'm sure we have never played with. We played with all the typical metal bands over the years. You know,
Judas Priest,
and the Motorheads, and everybody of the world of this genre, pretty much. There's many people left that we hadn't played with, but you know, there's all kinds of other bands we'd never played with.
So what have Accept got coming up after MetalDays today?
We will continue for a few more weeks this run of touring, and then we'll take a little break and come back in the fall. But we're pretty much wrapping up the Blind Rage tour at this point. You know, it's the very last phase of this whole cycle, and then the next album will have to be written to be recorded, and how long that's going to take and when that's going to happen, who knows? But it'll happen. That's all I know.
Well, it's good to hear that there's going to be a future release.
Oh yeah. Why wouldn't there? Because we're having fun in what we do, and you know, as long as that's the case and we're all still healthy, then we will continue to do this.